So how does it feel to start preparing for UPSC? How does it feel that finally I am embarking upon the UPSC dream? Any anxious? Okay. And any other emotions which come to your mind? Anxious is a very good emotion that will remain throughout. UPSC is one hell of a roller coaster ride. It will not only, over the time you'll realize, it will not only expand your knowledge base, but it will also transform you as an individual. Suddenly you'll become that individual who can sacrifice a lot of things, who can sacrifice going for movies, who can sacrifice meeting friends, who becomes very disciplined, wakes up on time every morning, studies for a substantial amount of time, and suddenly you'll find yourself that you're a person who's suddenly developing opinions when all of you must have started reading the newspapers. Okay. Newspaper reading is probably the heart and soul of this examination. And for the past couple of years, the trend of UPSC has been such that nearly 60 to 65% of the questions will come from the newspaper. Your prelims as well as your mains and interview is current affairs based. For starters, for instance, we've just begun taking classes. So the best thing you can do during classes is, of course, listen very attentively, that we all know. Take down notes properly, that we all know. But also, when you go back home every day, you revise it. A lot of times what happens is the teachers are so good, the faculty here is so good that we understood things in class, and then we thought that okay, we've understood, now we don't need to revise it. But no matter how well you understand any topic in class, you will forget it in 1-2 days. So if you don't go back home and revise what was taught in class, it does not make sense. So your task never ends by just attending the coaching. Yes, you go to the coaching, learn, understand, take down notes, but when you go back home, you have to do 50% of the leftover work. You have to go through your coaching material. If there's a foundation book, for instance, if we are dealing with polity, so you need to go back home and do that particular chapter from Lakshmikant, memorize it, and that is when your work is finally done. Coaching, of course, is very important, but what is even more important is self-study when you go back home. Now, when we come to prelims, let's start with prelims. The most frequently asked question to me is, how many hours do we need to study? Well, I think after coaching, sir just told me it's 4 hours. So if you're studying 4 hours in class, I think 4 hours needs to be done when you go back home. So in all, every day you're studying nearly 7 to 8 hours. And that is the requirement of UPSC. Now, 4 hours, of course, you'll be dealing with whatever subject is being taught in class. Now, when you go back home, of those 4 hours, at least 1.5 to 2 hours will be spent in newspaper. Now, the leftover hours. 1 hour you will revise, the other hours you will revise whatever was taught in class. So, your whole day would comprise of newspaper, your 4 hours of classroom study, and the another leftover 2 hours, let's say 1.5 to 2 hours, again revising what was taught in class. So ideally that is what your day should comprise of every day. People ask me, how do we reduce newspaper time? We cannot reduce newspaper time, because like I said, 60 to 65% of the questions will be from newspaper, and if you can't even give it 2 hours every day, then you are doing injustice. Now the next follow-up question is, how do we read the newspaper? Now, how many of you are very well thorough with the UPSC syllabus? The first step towards preparing for UPSC is memorizing the UPSC syllabus. Memorizing it so well that you can on the spot tell me that this topic is in paper 3, this topic is in paper 4 or paper 1 or whatever. Why is it so important to memorize the UPSC syllabus? Because the UPSC syllabus will be a constant guide for you to decide what to study and what not to study in UPSC. Now, when we read the papers every day, there is so much to study, and we often get confused. Is this relevant for me? Do I need to read this article? Is this editorial important for me or not? The answers to these type of questions will only come when you've known the UPSC syllabus so well. Because the moment you're thorough with the UPSC syllabus, when you pick up the newspaper next day, automatically your mind will filter, oh, this topic was mentioned in the syllabus, so it is important for me. This was not, so I can leave it. Now, for prelims, studying of course is very important, but more than that, since prelims is a very different kind of paper, you have to identify the correct option among 4. You have to specify whether this is right, this is wrong. It's a very objective paper. When I was a student at Rouse, we had weekly tests. I'm not sure what's the pattern.
Now we have changed the pattern.
Taking mock tests is very important. Why? Because of course you will evaluate yourself. Oh, I studied this much. Now how am I performing? Did I study well? Did I not do well? Secondly, it will help you make a strategy. Because in prelims, it's all about managing negative marking and still, going with the risk game. So that practice can only come with mock test. So take as many mock tests as you can. Even when, for instance, if we are studying, say, precedent in polity, and okay, fine, we attended class, we learnt everything, we went back home, we even read that chapter from Lakshmikant. Then what the ideal strategy should be, you can take up previous year question papers and see precedent ke chapter se what all questions came. Or probably if the coaching has supplied you with some mock test questions, what questions could come or what questions can come. So ideally that is a wholesome sort of a study. If you don't do this, we just study, we never practice questions, it will not help. Now that is something very exciting, because current affairs, as we know, is very important, and if you guys are getting 50 questions from Hindu and then more from other papers, then I think that's fantastic. Now when we go for giving the prelims, giving the paper is an art in itself. So I'll share some basic tips. Now first, like I say this every time, whenever we go to an exam center, never talk to anybody. Because what happens is, we go there and we're like, acha kitta hua, what have you studied? Oh, I studied this. What do you think is important? Will this question come? Now what happens is, of course you might have left something and the other person might have left something. You all can't do everything same. Now you will realize that somebody would say this is important, and it might be a probability that you might not even have touched that topic. Now what will happen is, you will panic, you will get nervous, and you might just spoil your mood and spoil your own chances. So you should never talk to anybody when you reach the examination center. Now when the paper comes, there are 100 questions, and suddenly we start thinking, oh, there are so many questions, I'll do it very quickly, and then we move in a hurry and we move in a rush. Now what happens is, if we move in a rush, we don't read the questions properly. And if we don't, say there's a question and you've read it very quickly, missed a keyword or a key phrase. Now if you miss keywords, you will interpret the question in a different manner and thereby mark the answer incorrectly. And if you're in a more rush, you will directly mark that answer even on the OMR sheet. And then God help you, you can't change anything. So I think the strategy first is that before even looking at the answer options, you would read the question twice. Underline if there is a keyword, if there is some key phrase, underline it, then look at the question, then mark it on the question paper itself. Then read it once more. After being certain, yes, this is the answer I know, only after that will you mark it on the OMR sheet. And believe me and trust me, there is ample time. In fact, you will have half an hour just for playing that risk game. Should I mark this, should I not mark this? Because there will be some 30% to 35% questions which we think we know, but we do not also know. So we play that risk game. So there is ample time, because when we are in examination mode, we are 100% focusing on the paper. It's very different from a classroom mode, because your friends are sitting next to you and it's not a real exam, so you're somewhat relaxed. But when you're giving prelims, you're giving prelims, your 100% focus is on the paper. You just take 30 to 40 seconds actually to solve one question, and that's very quick. So do not worry that you'll not have time. But if you do it in a hurry, and it's a competitive exam, you just because you were in a hurry, you understood the question wrong, and then you play with your chances. So always, before even looking at the answer options, read the question twice. Then look at the answer option, mark it first on the question paper, and after that only then will you encircle on the OMR sheet. Then if we move on to mains. Mains, of course, is very, very interconnected with how prelims is, and of course, prelims will set your base for mains. However, it's very different from mains. Why? Because here you just had to say right, wrong, yes, no. In mains, you are supposed to have opinions. You're supposed to tell the examiner what you feel about the issue. You're supposed to analyze the issue. You're supposed to critically evaluate the issue. So you are somehow projecting yourself as well to the examiner. The examiner can't see you. He is going to judge you through your answers. So you are supposed to have opinions and beliefs, and and how do you project yourself to the examiner? By writing well. And how do you write well? By practicing answer writing. Now a lot of us, especially who are from the technical background, for a lot of time you guys have not been writing answers, and if you don't practice writing answers, then it becomes very difficult. Why? Because the mains examination is very tough. In 3 hours you are supposed to write 20 to 25 questions in about 200 to 50 words, and that's an enormous task. In fact, I'll tell you my own experience. When I gave my first mains mock test series, out of 20 questions, I could only do 14 in 3 hours, in 200 words. And I also remember the time when I gave my mains exam, and the ethics paper during my time was very long, very difficult. I was the only person at my center who could complete the examination. So, and how was that possible? Because I did a lot of answer writing practice. Not only how to write a particular answer, but how to write answers in an examination framework. So mains test, in mains, prelims of course it is important, but in mains it becomes all the very important that you take a test series, because it will not only teach you how to write answers, but will teach you the art of time management. In mains, the fight is for 1 mark. Your 1 mark will change your service, it will change your Carter, it can change a lot of things. So when we are fighting for 1 mark, we can't afford to lose a mark. So if by chance if you couldn't complete the paper on time, you're leaving one question, and one question is for 12.5 marks. that can even decide whether you make it to the list or not. Apart from the art of answer writing, even more important is the art of time management. So that is how joining a mains test series becomes very important. Now, how do we study for mains? Because we are studying GS, we are studying optional. It's a myth that one should take this optional, one should take that optional, that is scoring, this is scoring. That's all, they are all rumors, they have no basis. Choose an optional which is of your interest, because the optional syllabus amounts to a graduation syllabus, and you're supposed to do a graduation which is usually for 3 years in 4 months. That is a ginormous task actually. And if you will not have interest in that subject, then life becomes hell, because how will you study so much? And UPSC does not discriminate that I'll give geography students more marks, I'll give this subject students more marks. No, they give you marks if you perform well, and you will perform well if you are interested in that subject. If you go by this year's trend, I took political science, rank 2 took philosophy, rank 3 took Punjabi literature, rank 4 took medical sciences. So it's varied, and we've scored the first 4 ranks. So it all depends on where your interest lies. So choose a subject of your interest, and of course other exigencies also play an important role, in the sense that is coaching available for that subject or not, is the material there or not. But even more than that, it is your interest which matters the most. Mains, the syllabus is so vast that you can't do it this way, that one day I'll study polity, the next day I'll study history, then third day geography, then fourth day optional. It doesn't work that way. Also because the topics are so huge, so vast, so heavy, that they take time. आप एक दिन में नहीं कर पाएंगे. You will take to finish one topic, you will take at least 2 to 3 days. So select, for instance, if we talk about paper 3, that's economics, science and technology and national security. So economics, there are around 7 to 8 topics. So Monday to Saturday just do 7 to 8 topics, then do give a test just for that economy section, and you are done with economy. Then next week when you study for optional, we have 2 papers, and even those 2 papers are divided. So, take a considerable chunk. Okay, this week from Monday to Saturday I'll do this, and for that section I'll give a test on Sunday. And that's how you plan it. And after you give a test, and you yourself will feel confident, okay, I have finished a considerable chunk. And if you don't plan, often we even for prelims, we never plan. We think that, okay, today I'll study geography, tomorrow I'll study this thing. We never plan anything. We study very haphazardly, we study randomly, and then we get scared by the end of 2 months. We get scared, oh, I have not studied anything. We start panicking. That's because we have not planned our study. UPSC is not only about studying, it's also about studying smartly. So you need to plan, you need to have timetables. School mein timetables banate the na, वैसे timetable you need to have timetables for your own self. We need to study just 7 to 8 hours in a day, just plan out that, and that too taking into account that 4 hours will go in coaching, 2 hours will go in newspaper. So like that. Mains requires a lot of answer writing practice. So ideally I think one answer has to be written in a day, one answer, and one test has to be solved every week. In mains, we often ignore a very special paper which is known by the name of essay. We don't think about essay, we ignore it, and we think of it at the very end. But we should not do so. Why? Because GS, nearly everybody will be marked in the same way. Even if you see the marks of all of us this time, you'll see it's nearly the same. I might have scored 1 mark more here, somebody might have scored 1 mark more than me somewhere else. So mains, GS is nearly same marks. What can really create a difference is your ethics paper, your essay paper, and of course your optional. Now essay, we ignore it, we should not, because if in GS, like I said, marking is nearly the same, or in case you didn't know a question, or you couldn't finish the paper, or something bad happened and you lost some marks. If you performed decently in essay, because people don't study for essay, so it's a scoring paper. So if you performed decently in essay, you will cover up. So ideally after your prelims end, and even if during right now, if you get some time, say in a month you can write 1 essay, and after your prelims, I think every 10 days 1 essay has to be written. Now essays are basically of 2 types. The topics for essays are basically of 2 types. One type is they would be very creative and philosophical in nature. For instance, pen is mightier than the sword. Now some of us are very, very creative. So that's very nice, and if you are, you can go ahead with such topics and you will score really well. The other type of topics are more current affairs, general studies oriented. That's for people like me who are not that creative. So you'll already be doing a lot of GS studying, you'll be doing a lot of newspaper reading. So these topics you'll anyways be in touch with. So you may pick up these topics and then write. But you have to train your mind, because your mind after prelims will start getting trained for writing in 200 words. And you be comfortable, be your own decision maker, that what kind of essays can I write? Am I the creative sort, or am I that person who will write something on GS oriented or current affairs oriented? So that's your call. You need to make a decision. Now if we come to ethics, ethics is probably a paper which is the most feared, because we don't understand it and nobody really knows what is asked. Now in ethics, they divide the paper in 2. Part A, Part B. In Part A, it will be more theoretical and philosophical. They'll ask you about a few philosophers. They'll ask you about a bit about governance from the point of view of ethics, like the ethical angle, that what is integrity in public administration, and the coaching will take care of all of that. They'll give you notes and everything. So that is a bit easier part, because you just have to learn it and reproduce it. The more trickier part is Part B, which is case studies. Now we often even ignore case studies, because we think, oh, it's just a case, I'll read the case and on the spot whatever comes to my mind that this can be the solution, I'll just write that. But don't do that, because they are very difficult case studies, and they also require again to train your mind to think of some standard solutions. They'll ask you that, oh, this has happened in your district, if you were the district collector, tell us what you will do. And they'll give you options also. You have to evaluate the options, strength or weaknesses, that is it a good decision or it is a bad decision. So you just need to train your mind, and whenever you don't feel like studying, whenever you're bored, I think this is a very good pastime. Your decision of optional, your study of optional has to be very, very sincere. Why? Optional is for 500 marks. Optional will determine everything, because GS everybody is nearly marked the same. It's optional which will determine whether you make it to the list or not. So never treat the optional as lightly. Often we just study GS, we ignore optional. Don't do that. Optional deserves some respect. Give it that respect which a paper of 500 marks deserves. So you have to study, and you have to be very, very sure about which optional you are taking, why you are taking it. And of course we all can be smart. We know that okay, this optional is also a bit of it covers GS. I think all optionals except a few are part of GS somehow. So be very clever. When, for instance, I was a political science student, so I knew that political science student somehow also covers my IR and GS paper too. So when I used to study for that, I simultaneously ensured that my GS paper 2 was also getting prepared. So be smart, and nearly every optional has some portion in GS. So identify that and try to, while you are studying that, also try to cover that to save your time. UPSC interview is the most scariest moment of your life. You literally feel so anxious, so pressurized that nothing could prepare you for that moment. In fact, when you are in that sitting area and you are walking from that sitting area to the interview boardroom, you actually constantly pray to God, just kill me now, or just make me disappear, and you have such thoughts, because it's very scary. This thing goes in your head that, oh, this is it. This will determine a lot of things. This will determine my rank, my service, my cadre, or whatever. This is going to determine a lot of things. And what if I don't speak well today? What if I don't know the question? So a lot of things keep happening. But the moment you reach the door and you knock on the door and they say, come in, and you greet them and they smile at you, then things become okay. Because even they know that the child is scared, the student is scared. So they'll smile at you, they'll be kind, they'll be supportive. They even give you hints if they think that with the hint you will be able to answer it more properly. So it's a rumor, it's that they eat you and they grill you. Of course they grill you, but they're very kind and supportive. They are. And in the interview, they will try to evaluate you from all aspects. They will ask you about your optional subject. They will ask you about your graduation. So a lot of times, especially engineers, they are not really confident about their graduation. And I'll tell you my own experience. So they make groups of 6. They group students into 6 and assign them to one interview board. So in my group of 6, I was the only arts graduate, and the all others were engineers. Now the gentleman after me, when I met him the next day for the medical test, he told me, oh no, Tina, Alka Sirohi ma'am, she asked me all engineering questions and I could not answer them. And then she got very angry as well. And then I feel so dejected, because just imagine if the board chairman gets angry at you and says that, oh, you're from such a prestigious institution, you don't know the basics. And I am very disappointed in, your entire, you will feel like dying after that. So I think, of course, it makes sense if you have a degree in any subject. Might be arts, you might be a doctor, you might be an engineer, you might be an MBA graduate. If you have a degree in something, it just shows that you are supposed to be the expert in that subject. And if you are not, then there's a big question mark on you, and the interview board, of course, will not be impressed. So it's just that when after your mains end, don't think that now I'll go on an extended vacation to Hawaii. No, you can take a day or two off, but after that you really need to go back to what was done in college, like to be in touch with what was done. Of course, they understand that it's been a while that you haven't been doing engineering, so they would not expect you to know everything, but yes, the basic stuff, engineering or whatever field you come from. Then of course you have to again go back to your optional. They keep going back to the optional. Then of course they'll ask you a lot about what's happening around you. So right now we read one paper, after mains you have to read 3, but then you don't have to study other things, right? So you have to read 3 newspapers, 2 national dailies and 1 newspaper exclusively dedicated to economics. So you may either read the Business Standard or you may either read the Economic Times, but it has to be an economics related paper, because in February and March first week you'll have the budget and the economic survey coming in, and everybody has to study that, because they, of course that's what the parliament will be talking about, so that's what the interview board also will be talking about. Apart from that, they might give you situational problems. Alka Sirohi ma'am gave me a situational puzzle. And for instance, the person who was before me was working with the Ministry of Agriculture. So now the discussion might have carried on. So when my turn came, even I was asked two agriculture questions. So you might suffer from bad luck like that. Like I had absolutely no connect with agriculture. But then this is UPSC and you have to be prepared for everything. But since you will do so much reading of GS, that you will somehow, of course you can't know everything, but you will somehow know something about everything. That is the beauty of UPSC, it just educates you like anything. When we prepare for this exam, take it as an opportunity not only to increase your knowledge base, but like what I started with, it is going to transform you into a new person. You will suddenly feel that you are one person who now knows a lot of things, and you're a very responsible citizen and you know about your rights. Yes, that is true. Also take it as an opportunity to cultivate yourself as someone who has good speaking skills, because interview is all about communication. They need to understand what you really want to say. Take it as an opportunity to develop yourself as a leader. Take it as an opportunity to even change your opinions. For instance, a lot of times, a lot of my own male friends, of course, they would say they believe in gender equality. They would say that they believe that, oh no, women are as good as men are in studies or whatever. But somehow misogyny resides deep in their heart. And in interviews, so you know, you might bluff it in prelims. You might not show it in mains. But in interview, when you are under so much pressure, when 5 eyes are staring only at you, somehow you will forget all the pretense, all the acting that you are supposed to do, and things will come out. So if you are someone who believes in religious discrimination, caste discrimination, gender discrimination, this is the time you change yourself, because it comes out. It just comes out somehow, and you just play with your own chances. Then you'll feel yourself so bad that you came all the way till interview, and just because you said something, you offended the board some way, and then you have to sit for it again. Let me come to the motivating part, since even that is very important. I know this exam is very tough. I know it's so tough that every second or third day, you would feel that it's too much, I can't take it, I can't do it, this one knows more than me, this one asks more questions in class, or there are a lot of negative things which come into our mind. And when we see our counterparts, when we see our friends who are probably pursuing masters or who are in jobs, we see our boyfriends, we see our girlfriends, and we don't feel good about ourselves. And believe me, that's true, that happens to everyone. This is a very difficult journey, and all of you are very brave that you've decided to undertake it. Not many people have those guts. And always whenever you have that demotivating day, when you don't feel good about yourself, just remember this happens to every aspirant. Everyone who's sitting next to you, if you're feeling this today, he or she will feel that the other day. So it's very normal. Just think it is part of the process of giving the UPSC examination, feeling bad. So feeling bad goes along with giving UPSC examination. And I was fortunate I could do it in my first attempt, but I have been traveling across the country, and I've been meeting a lot of people, a lot of selected candidates, and I will share only one example with you right now. So some 20-25 days back, I was in Hyderabad, and I met this lady officer who's got selected along with me, and her story is truly inspiring, and her story is really heartwarming. It touches your heart. So this very lovely lady got married really young, and even when she was with her parents before marriage, she used to be discriminated against her brothers. Her brothers were given more educational opportunities, more love and attention, which is the usual case in India in general, many a times, unfortunately. Now, they got her married, but she was very interested in giving civil services. It was her passion, it was her interest, she wanted to go for it. But even her in-laws did not support, her husband did not support. So we keep on hearing a lot of examples where, okay, the financial circumstances were not right, but family supported. Here, neither the financial circumstances were good, neither was there any support, nor from her parents, her brothers, her husband, her in-laws. But then this girl wanted to give the exam. So she still, fought against everybody, and she said, no, I'm going to sit for the exam. So she gave her first attempt and she failed. Now again, we know how the rishtedars are, how everybody is like, तुमसे कुछ नहीं होने वाला, घर बैठो, खाना बनाओ, बच्चे पैदा करो. But she wanted to. She gave a second attempt. Again she failed. She had to listen so much from her parents, in-laws, everybody in society, everybody. Then she sat for her third attempt. She again failed. And her husband started living away from her. And that's something big, I think women here will realize. But she wanted to become a civil servant. So she gave a fourth attempt. And finally she made it. And she's got selected into the Indian Foreign Service. So, that's the passion we are talking about. Because, the routine gets boring. You get up every day, you study so many hours, you go to coaching, you come back. It gets boring after a while. And then, your mind starts getting distracted that, oh, I don't want to study. So it is, of course, very difficult. But if you have targets set for every day, like I used to plan things for 3 months in advance, that for the next 3 months, this is what I'm going to do every day. The scheduling took a whole day to make, but then for the rest of the 3 months, I was pretty sorted. So when I had targets every day, that okay, today I'm going to complete this, and if I don't complete this today, then my next day target is also there. So I'll just have so much backlog. So if you have targets every day, if you have planned, if you have some planning, you have some timetable, you have some schedule, then things become a bit easier, and you're more easier in the sense you're able to force yourself to study. That if I don't study, then this will get, I will not finish this, then iska backlog ho jayega. So if you have targets every day. So one thing which always helps is that for answer writing, we follow a standard format in which there will be 2 to 3 lines of introduction, then there will be a main body, and then we'll have again 4 to 5 lines of conclusion. So if you follow this format in every question, in every answer, the good thing is you're trying to project to the examiner that you're very logical in your thoughts, you're very organized in your thoughts. So one thing you can do is this. The next thing is, a lot of times, because UPSC would never ask you direct questions, they'll ask you very twisted questions. So actually the real fight is to understand what they're actually asking. So I think take 30 to 40 seconds just to understand the question, what exactly is being asked, and then try to elaborate that in the answer. So people who understand the question well, they get good marks, and most people we just start panicking just by looking at the question, and we don't really take out time to understand the question, and then we write anything and we don't get marks. So that is the second thing you need to be careful. If you practice one answer every day after your prelims, I think in a month you'll be able to write good answers. But it takes a month, so don't get disheartened. And of course, when you'll begin writing, you'll take nearly 15-20 minutes for one answer. When in fact in exam you only get some 6.5 to 7 minutes. But that will happen when you are writing your mains. So don't worry if right at the outset, right at the beginning, you're taking 15 to 20 minutes. It is natural. Everybody does that. And gradually in a month, you'll be cool with it. Making notes is very important, because even it's a scientific fact that you'll be able to remember something which was written in your hand and not printed text.
Yeah.
So it even works that way. You somehow recall more if something was written in your own hand, by your own hand. So, but at the same time, a lot of time, what happens is you read the paper and you feel important, I'll write it down, and we end up writing the whole paper down. And it takes like 5 hours, and then we're like, ab kya kare, din waste ho gaya. So we can't even afford to do that. What I used to do is, and my advice to you is, that you read the papers every day, 2 hours, very religiously, regularly, even underline, it's fine, just underline. Don't do anything, underline, because when we underline, we sort of even underline it in our brain that, okay, this was important. We underline it, and by the end of the month, when we get the current affairs supplement from the coaching, it gets very easy to learn that. You will, a lot of people think कि अच्छा ये तो current affair magazine मिलती है market में या material है coaching का, so what's the point of reading the paper? There is a point. That point is that you will never be able to memorize that coaching material if you've not read the paper every day.
Right.
So paper every day keeps that stuff in your head so that when you really have to memorize and analyze and the coaching material, वो तभी याद होगा. Because of course coaching will identify only those topics which are exam relevant, and even you will be following them every day in the newspaper. If you don't do that, you will never be able, you will forget that, and you will find memorizing current affairs a very big task. So that is one thing. About what notes to be actually make.
Yeah, because suppose we are reading editorials and also there are certain viewpoints which can be used later on in analysis.
So you can of course, that is one very good thing which has to be done, that whenever you find say somebody like, let's say Amrita Sen only, he writes an article and you, oh, this is something very wonderful and I need to take it down. Of course you can take that down. Apart from that, we know there are some topics which are important. For instance, during my time, smart cities and urbanization, that was very hot, and everybody just used to every day report about that only, and we knew some question will come. We were also aware that okay, this is something upcoming, it might be relevant for the exam. So this is one topic. So just following that topic in writing, and every day if things are being reported, that means just one line will be important every day. So just pick up that one line and write it down on a paper. So I am not writing the whole paper down. I am not taking all topics of the paper, today's paper down. I am just picking up, identifying one theme which might be important for the exam and just tracking that individually. Others, for other topics, the coaching is there. Why do we join coaching? We join coaching so that some headache is given to them. And they take over the headache of researching what is important for us. Yes, that is what the coaching is supposed to do. So make use of the resources. But there is absolutely no substitute to reading the newspaper. You will never memorize anything of current affairs if you are not reading.